Throughout his award-winning career as a filmmaker, Oliver Stone has never been afraid to tackle larger-than-life people and politics. His films have been nominated for 36 Academy Awards. He has won 11. He has been called the Dostoevsky of film. An American university in Washington, D.C. offers a course called Oliver Stone's America. He directs his films through a revisionist lens with a passion for his version of the truth. At 51, he is the father of 3 children. This month, his latest film, U-Turn, starring Sean Penn and Nick Nolte, appears in theaters across the country. And his first novel, A Child's Night Dream, hits the bookstores. I am pleased to have him back at this table. Welcome back.
Thank you, John.
Great
nice
to see
be
you
here.
Let's talk about you first. Now look at this. This is research about you, all recent stuff, stories. This is the Atlantic Monthly, June 1997. Gary Wells on Oliver Stone, and it just goes on. And New York Times Magazine, on and on. You are The Last Wild Man by Stephen Schiff. This is a story in the New Yorker. There is almost, Oliver Stone, a cottage industry. Either what you're doing or people fascinated with what you're doing. And I want to know how you see this and how you see yourself and how you see what Oliver Stone is about.
It's a tough question, Charlie. I mean, I've always sort of been, I've been subjective, and the subjective is always blending with the object. So when I approach a movie, yeah, I merge into the movie and I become part of it, and a part of Nixon is me, a part of Morrison is me, a part of Jim Garrison is me. But all through the years, a lot of people have been confused, and they say, that's me. You know, I was a Vietnam veteran who couldn't get Vietnam out of his mind, and I was a conspiracy theorist, and I was a wild man on the Doors, and then Natural Born Killers, who knows what I was. So people have been a little bit confused, and, you know, who is Oliver Stone, frankly? And yeah, it's something that I'm trying to find out, because I'm reaching that place where, you know, it's the third act of your life, and I follow the Socratic line, which is to know thyself. And that's part of the reason I wrote the book, is to really get back. Here, this book was about my life up to about 20, and I wanted to get back inside myself as a young man and find some clues and find the evidence and where I went. So
if you wanted to know where you were going, you wanted to find out where you'd come from.
I think you have to. You have to go back to the beginning. And it really helped me. This was
let me come back to this. I know you want to talk about this, but let me come. But where do you think you are now, and what is it that is driving you, and how do you define?
Well, a lot of the drive, I think, the desire is a desire to be accepted. It's sort of a thing. As an only child, you know, my parents were here in my life. They were in close-up, and then they were gone. They were great parents. I loved them, but they also kind of ignored me, too, and they dropped me. And I think that I was this lonely kid who was like seeking approval all the time, and, you know, it was tough. And I grew up in a pretty tough society in the 50s. It was all male, and the schools were, you know, you went through it too, I presume.
Right, I did. And
the Army, and I was in the Merchant Marine. And, you know, I didn't have many women in my life except my mother, and it took a time to reintegrate into society after Vietnam for me. And the film business has been rough. I mean, it's like Vietnam in a way. I mean, it's so intense. You make a movie, it's like 1 year is like 2 years of regular life, it feels like. And then you go through a lot of heat making these movies, because I tried to honestly deal with my passion, my view of contemporary times. I wanted to render it honestly on film. I tried, and you know what happened. I mean,
why is it tough for you? I mean, you are an accomplished director, a bankable director.
Yeah.
Why is it tough?
I think I probably make it tough on myself,
yeah,
because I probably go out after things that are on my mind. You know, it's in the book too. I'm embarrassed about some things in here, and I suppose if I were protecting myself, I wouldn't put it in the book. But well, there's a lot of things. I mean, the young man's shyness, his awkwardness, his sexuality, I mean, he doesn't know who he is. He's like a lot of young people out there in the world. They don't know who they are yet. And it's a very complicated society we live in, where advertising is always hitting us. We're living in consumer society where, you know, you're always being hawked, or you're hawking, and I think kids are a little confused. There's a lack of spiritual values in America, and that was true in the 60s, and it was also true now in the 90s. If anything, it's gotten louder and worse and more competitive and more aggressive. So people, you know, I don't think I'm the only one. I think that the younger generation share a lot of my confusion.
This book, then, we'll come back to where you are now, where you're going. A Child's Night Dream. You started when you were about 19?
I wrote it when I was 19, and it caused me a lot of grief. I dropped out of college really twice, Yale University, and I ended up going to, the book was rejected by several publishers. It was 1,000 and more pages long.
And you tossed some of it into the East River.
I took it very personally. It was like the end of, and I buried myself in the Army. I went back to Vietnam as William Stone. There's two characters in this book. One is William Stone, the other one is Oliver Stone.
Right.
And the William Stone character really wanted to be anonymous in the infantry and disappear. And frankly, ready for suicide, you know, in the sense like I couldn't pull the trigger on myself, but Vietnam would do it for me. It was a way to get out. And I had tremendous fights with my parents at this time, and I didn't belong here in America. I just didn't feel right. It was a time, by the way, the 60s, the early 60s, there was no youth culture like there is today. Children were sort of seen but not heard. We weren't allowed to sort of express our troubles. You know, people's attitude was so, you know, you're only 19, what kind of problems could you have that are so serious, you know? And that's true today still. Parents sometimes don't listen to their young ones. The suicide rate on young people has jumped about 3 times since the 1960s, I've heard. So this is still a significant problem. And because a person is young does not mean that his problem is immature. It means that he has a problem. And sometimes older people turn away from that and they don't listen very well to the things that are bothering the young person.
Yeah. Let me turn and come back to that too, but turn to getting this book published. Mm-hmm. You stored away and you had it in shoe boxes in various places that you lived. Musings about your life. You know?
Yeah. Oh no, it was written as a real novel. I mean, but it was a mess. I mean, I hadn't solved it. I really hadn't finished it. So 30 years went by, and it was on my mind. I never lost track of it. It was in the back of my mind because it was it cost me a lot, as I said. I mean, I dropped out of the United States, and I went to Vietnam. It changed my life. It was a fork in the road. This novel was the beginning for me of a new life and the end of an old one. So it was hardly forgotten. And I mentioned it in a few interviews, perhaps on this show, I don't remember. Bob Weil, a very good editor over at St. Martin's Press, he handles people like Henry Roth and Heinrich Boll, the German writer who won the Nobel Prize. Serious editor, was very interested in reading it and pursued it for a year or so. I gave him the book finally, and he went through it page by page, the 1,000-odd pages, and he made copious notes. And he really, most importantly, he emotionally encouraged me to finish this book.
And Oliver and Norman Mailer said, Stone's writing is phenomenal. It's a young man's style and full of Finnegan's Wake, but it is good enough to be startling, for recognition comes quickly. If Oliver Stone spent many years in literary works as he has in film, he would probably be a major American writer. I know of no other movie director, no matter how talented, of whom that can be said.
It's very kind of Norman.
But you made your beginning as a screenwriter. I mean, it seems to me that you've been a writer, that you might even first define yourself as a writer.
No, I always wanted to be a director after film school, but writing screenplays was the ticket.
Way to get there. So it wasn't something that you...
No, writing and directing were always one to me at that time. But, and you know, screenplay writing is fascinating, and it is an art form. It really is. But it truly, in my opinion, is a collaboration. So the screenplay goes through all these stages.
And all these writers.
Writers, hopefully not, but other directors add something to the material, the cinematographer, certainly the actors add. Sometimes, in my films anyway, I collaborate with my actors, improvise, and then in the editing process is also a severe rewrite. It's a re-examination of the original material. So by the end of the day, the screenplay truly is as a movie is a collective. It's a collective of the best of everyone's minds on the movie. Yeah. Whereas a novel is truly a private affair. It's something secret, something private. It's something unto yourself, and you live by yourself. You write by yourself.
Is this a film?
Yeah, potentially. I didn't do it as such. It's not written specifically as such, but there's certainly the story of a young man on the edge of adolescence veering towards early adulthood. And
how much of your sexuality and your feelings about sex are coming out of this book and to read about your relationship with your mother? who's still alive. Isn't she?
Yes. Yeah.
She's 70.
She's 70 plus. She's Annie Mae, my mom. You have to realize that she's a very sophisticated French woman. And she was very open and in the French way with me about life and about sexuality. You know, I grew up.
She was a seminal influence growing up.
Absolutely. I mean, all mothers are. And we all bear scars and love. We have a love-hate relationship, many of us, with our parents. You know, it's when you write a book like this, you got to be.
Your father was more stiff and detached.
Yeah, but he was also a very strong figure in my life. I had two strong parents. If anything, probably if they'd been a little weaker, it might have been easier on me, because they were both fighting with each other too. So I was in the middle of a storm, and it marked me for a long time. But when you write something like this, it's basically confessional literature. And what you have to do is you have to go inside these relationships if you're going to be honest with the public. That's a contract. You know, you don't. If you write a book, you're not going to write some bogus book where you hide things. So I made the commitment 30 years later when I saw some of the more embarrassing things about my relationships with my mom and dad.
Like
I put them in anyway. You know.
What's embarrassing for you?
Well, you know, there was Oedipal attractions. There's also a destructiveness, in a sense.
Yeah, your mom said she think Oliver was in love with me.
I think I was. I do. I really do. I think that my mother was a beautiful woman. She was a stunning, glamorous woman, trailing perfume and fur coats, and she was very much in the social woman, and French accent, and you know, it was really special to be around her. And obviously, she was strong and certainly dominant woman, and it's tough for a little kid. And then she'd pull away. You know, she'd disappear, and because she had a very busy life. And I was, you know, relegated to the nanny or the boarding school or the house in the grandmother's house in France. You see, so I never knew when Mom was coming back, and there's that fundamental uncertainty that is in this book about when Mom will come back, or if she will at all.
What's the title? A Child's Night Dream.
A Child's Night Dream it's very much to do with dream, because dream to me has motivated the most interesting parts of my life. By that I mean that it was my capacity to dream that gave me my greatest adventures, such as going to war, going to the Merchant Marine as a wiper, making love to exotic women, making illusions like movies. These are all dreams. Movies are dreams. It's a dream state. In other words, I was able to, as you understand, live through a dream in Vietnam. I mean, I was there, but it was certainly a bizarre war. And then 20, 30 years later, make movies about Vietnam. That is almost like a second, you know, a second generation dream.
Have the movies, are you finally finished with making movies about Vietnam?
I think so. I tried to do Bright Shining Lie, which I loved as a book, where Neil Sheehan wrote.
It's now going to be made for an HBO film.
It's going to be made at a low budget. I don't know if they're going to be able to, you know, bring to it the size and the scope that's in that book.
Well, they'll certainly be able to bring the time to it, though. That's what they'll have that a film wouldn't have.
That's true. That's true. But I think it could have been a film, a 2.5-hour film.
And why did it, in the end, not become a feature film?
It just never happened, because my last Vietnam film, the Heaven and Earth movie, which was about a Vietnamese immigrant, failed at the box office, and I think people cooled on the idea of my doing another Vietnam movie, so there was no real heat.
People
on
with
it.
the money.
Yeah. And also actors, you know, you need a star to play in a movie like that, and
What
it's
is
a scary proposition.
your son's name is what, Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does he think about the movies you make?
So,
I mean, does he watch them with you? Do you have discussions with him? Because this is about a young man's coming of age, and your son's 11 or 12, 13?
He's 12, yeah.
12.
He's very smart, though. And, of course, you have to realize he grew up in L.A., and peer pressure is pretty severe in the schools they go to. And the boys, I mean, are into Jenny McCarthy on the internet. They get videos. I mean, they live a pretty wild life. Yeah. And there's no drugs, and I know that. So, but I think he's a good kid. Essentially, he's got a good heart. And that's, although, yeah, he's a little jaded. He watches too much TV. He's seen too much. But you can't stop that. Television, in a sense, has interfered with parental authority. You know, you can't tell your kid what to see. They know more than you know before you can stop them.
Which movie are you proudest of, and which one do you think has brought you the most second thoughts?
Well, they all represent something different in my life, because they were part of each one was at a place where I was growing individually, but
I would think Platoon would be the best, and I would suggest Natural Born Killer you might have some reservations about.
No, not at all.
So I missed on both
I
sides.
think that Natural Born Killers was a much misunderstood film, and it's still, perhaps I failed in the sense that it wasn't clearly understood by all who saw it.
What didn't they understand, you think?
Well, it was a satire. It was, it was a look. It was a mirror on a society in the early '90s that was insane.
And
the media was, for profit, was glamorizing murder and crime.
Let me turn.
It is, by the way.
Let me turn to U-Turn. We've got a clip in that.
Sure.
You've got great characters. I mean, you have brought together. This is a film noir based. I mean, is it Duel in the Sun recast, so to speak?
I call it a thriller. Because more in the Hitchcock tradition, if you don't know what's going to happen next, it's like one of those stories where you don't give away the middle or the end, I hope. And it's a ride. It goes from very funny stuff to savage stuff, like Hitchcock actually did. And it's a bit of a Western,
film
too.
Like this, I mean, why did you want to make it? And did you sit and watch Kingbinder, and did you watch? I mean, or
Duel in the Sun, I remember as a kid, my mom's favorite actress was Jennifer Jones, and Gregory Peck. It was a great melodrama. The two lovers destroy each other at the end of Duel in the Sun. There's some similarities in this way.
Yeah, but why did you? I mean, the script was written based on what?
It was based on a John Ridley original script.
Yeah.
He was a stand-up comedian, actually, so there was a lot of humor. It was crackling dialogue, and he loves those 40s desperate characters. But we wanted to make it as a 90s movie in a small town in Arizona.
But the same sense of desperation, the same sense of lives
6 scorpions
beyond control.
in a bucket trying to get out of, trying to find freedom.
in an Arizona town.
Yeah.
Casting, you got Nolte, you got Sean Penn, you've got
Jennifer
John
Lopez.
Voight, you've got Billy Bob Thornton, you've got Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
You've got
Claire Danes,
River Phoenix brother.
Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix. You've got who else?
Claire Danes.
Claire Danes plays.
Yeah, those are the 6. Powers Booth is the sheriff.
Powers Booth plays the sheriff,
and,
right?
Bo Hopkins is in, and Julie Haggerty.
That's
it was
a
a
great
great cast. Yeah, I loved it.
Now, was this a great experience for you? I mean, you shot it $20 million budget. You shot it in what 40 days?
Yeah, 42 days. Yeah.
Which is pretty good by anybody's standard.
6 weeks. Yeah, it was a tough shoot though.
Yeah.
But we,
It was
the
a
idea
ride
was
for all of you.
Not all. I mean, some people. It was a tough shoot. Arizona in winter, you don't have a lot of light. You had to move fast. We were shooting in rocks and canyons and on the sides of cliffs. I mean, it was hairy. So it was tough stuff to shoot.
Okay, roll tape. This is from U-Turn, Oliver Stone's film, soon to be seen around the country. Here it is. What's the story here? Here's all of a sudden Nick Nolte has walked in on Sean Penn, who sort of arrives in this town. He's picked up by Nolte's wife.
Yeah.
What's
Who's an
the story?
Apache woman. I don't want to give away too much, but essentially
you gotta set up the protagonist
he falls
here.
into the middle between a husband and wife feud that's going on, and he's used by both sides.
So they both want him to kill the other. We can't.
Yeah, well,
So that's early on set up, isn't it?
Yeah, but still, it's.
Why do you still write screenplays?
Yeah, I did a lot of work on this screenplay.
That's the collaboration that inevitably ends up on a screenplay.
Yeah, it's always going on. And Sean Penn added some great lines. Billy Bob Thornton designed his own costume, which is an amazing thing to see.
And with the bandana around his head and all that.
You don't recognize him, and he's playing the flip side of Sling Blade. And he also made up some of his own lines that are hilarious.
Roll tape, clip 2 from U-Turn. Well, so there you are.
Joaquin Phoenix is a great discovery. He's going to have a good career.
He was in the one with Nicole Kidman and...
he was in To Die For, but he played
For.
a completely different, weak, strange kid. Sean Penn also, I feel, has a great sense of comic timing. That he's a great deadpan, and he's grown into his face. I don't know. He feels older now to me as like a man. Bob Mitchum comes to mind. He's got that sullen sexiness that. And he feels like his face is lived in, Before he looked a little bit like a younger boy.
Yeah. All right. Here is a conversation I did in Los Angeles over the weekend talking about you. Here it is, Sean Penn.
A very aggressive comedy.
Aggressive?
Film noir, black comedy. Directed by a guy who's got just an enormous wealth of raw talent. But who also reminds me of one of those pug dogs that are constantly trying to drain this chronic sinus problem there.
Yes.
That's Oliver Stone to me. Very
the pugster.
Yeah, but he's a savant in a way. His focus on what he's doing is great, and I think at the very least, he's bold, and at his best, he's got a certain kind of genius. And I think the movie reflects that.
That's nice.
At the very least, he's bold. At the very least, he's bold.
Yeah.
At the best, he's got a kind of genius. It's pretty good.
I'll take it.
Yeah, you'll take that. But here's what I find interesting about you, because you and I disagree about lots of stuff we have talked about in the past and we'll talk about in the future. But you are out there defining yourself, offering your ideas, and saying, here's what I think, come at me, you know, and here's what I went through to get here, and here is who I am and who I'm in the process of being.
Yeah.
And I think that's admirable. I mean, I really, really do.
Thank you.
You're like, now don't go soft on me, but that's really what you're about, isn't it?
I guess so. Yeah.
Now, why do you?
I don't think I have a choice. I think you do what you do. Your motive, like Sean says, you got a drive in you, you got a bug in you, you got something that's pushing you, and you know, I don't have that much to do with it. Maybe it's it's beyond me. It's a spirit inside me that moves in this direction.
Spirituality?
Hopefully, it's getting there.
Really?
Yeah, working at it.
Are you?
Yeah.
What
Very
kind?
Well, as you, I've been practicing Buddhism for like 5 years now, since Heaven and Earth, actually, and it's been good for me. It's a very solid.
This was the film about the Vietnamese woman.
Yeah, Lily Hayslip. She was a Buddhist and indoctrinated me in the Vietnamese church, and since then I moved on to the Tibetan Buddhist because they speak better English, really, and they have a wilder tradition, which can accommodate people like me. In other words, there's a lot of extremes in Buddhism, and
You feel a certain vulnerability too.
I certainly do.
As loud as you are, and as many, you do.
Yeah, you know, I don't know that I would be able to function. My sensitivity wouldn't be there if I didn't feel it. You know, I have to stay close to the ground. I have to get hurt. I think that if you don't get hurt, if you're calloused, you become more cynical. And cynicism is my enemy. It always has been. I see it everywhere in the world today. It's predominant in our culture, and it's killing us. That negativity will hurt us. We have to stay positive. We have to be upbeat. We got to move forward. I think this new generation, I go to a lot of colleges and talk, I think they're really terrific. And I think that they're, in some ways, they're not as cynical as that Generation X that followed me. So maybe, you know, I feel like I'm relating to them. I feel young. I feel like I'm about 20 sometimes.
Because why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's just, you can't control these things. You just feel it. There are days I wake up, I feel like I'm 80.
Yeah, but
and then
you
there's
feel
certain
young.
days that I feel like I'm really young, and I'm just happy. I'm happy to be alive because my life means more now to me. You know, this book is framed really as a suicide note. It was a, you know, to be or not to be question.
You never thought you'd make it this far?
No, I thought first of all, I thought I'd get killed in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And secondly,
in fact,
I thought
you went over there, you say to get killed.
Yeah, and then secondly, I thought I'd be dead by 33. I ascribed to that rock star kind of thing where, you know, you just burned out, you know, Morrison and Hendrix and those guys and Janis Joplin. So I thought it was over. I never thought I'd be living at 50. And happier
What are you,
about
51,
living.
2, 3, something like that?
51, yeah. I just got a new daughter a couple of years ago, and she's just great.
21 months now, so.
She's so exciting.
Now, does she live with you?
Yeah.
Or does her mother a couple of
it's sort of
blocks down the street or something?
It's a little down the street.
But why? That's simply because you say, again, you're out there and you say it is man's nature is not to be monogamous. Yes?
That's right.
You know, and you want to be honest about it.
That's right.
Yet at the same time, you know, and your Elizabeth, your wife, your
Ex-wife.
pictures are around, ex-wife, you know.
Oh yeah, I
You
know.
say,
I'm
"This
trying
is
to
part of
maintain
my
a very
past."
strong relationship. It's very important for the children. Whatever I've done and whatever faults I have, I've tried to be a good father to the 3 children. Tried, and sometimes succeeded. I think Sean is proud of me and knows that I've been a good dad. And I love the mother of Tara. She's a wonderful woman. She's a wise, serene woman. She's a Korean woman. And she's so in touch with, she's actually a Christian, practicing Christian, and very serious, but she isn't, because of her native land, I think that she's really more Buddhist than I could ever be. She has just she has a serenity that I love.
What's the vulnerability, though? What is it that, I mean, is it that you're exposed and people will reject you, or people will, what is it?
Vulnerability? Well, I think you said it best. I think I put myself out there and I say what I mean. and I act like the way I should.
And
I don't want to be dishonest.
You write your own code.
I don't want to be dishonest because there's something about that that bothers me, and it makes me callous. And as I said earlier, cynicism would breed in me, and I don't want cynicism to come because it will be the end of me.
You know what else you do is that you never let up. I mean, I occasionally get things from you, which is some reference to a previous debate we've had. You know? Somebody wrote something about you that spoke to an issue that you and I had.
If it's a serious, I mean, I'm not going to chase all the lies and the out of context remarks that have been thrown at me. But if it's a serious accusation, I feel it's necessary. I can't. A lot of filmmakers walk away from their films and they say it's only a movie. I've never done that. I've been quoted as saying that, which is not true. It's not just a movie. It's an effort to come to consciousness about not only about our country and about our contemporary situation. It's consciousness that we're after, and that's truth. That's what they call enlightenment. You know, truth is elusive, as we know.
What idea are you drawn to now? In other words, what is it that is percolating inside of you that I've got to find a story to engage this
ironically,
idea?
I've been working on movies are like research and development. You have to do you R&D like 6, 7 things, and one of them comes to bear. I've been working hard on a formula movie, which I'm trying to give some philosophy to. It's a Mission Impossible 2 with Tom Cruise.
Tom came to you and said, I want to do this, but...
So the idea is to do it with action, but also add an element of truth and philosophy about where we're going to go in the next century.
Oh, but this is about the corporate culture or the military-industrial business?
Oh, yeah. It's the 21st century. It's cutting-edge stuff. And I hope it hasn't been... I don't think it's been done. But the other thing that's going on in my mind really is this book, because it's not about doing this book, but it's about dealing with myself more personally on film. Because you see, I've been Nixon, I've been all these people, and
What do you mean, I've been Nixon?
Well, I mean, part of me has been in that movie, because I told you the last time my father and this, that, but perhaps, you know, the European directors, look at Fellini, look at Truffaut, they took that chance. It was normal in those days to go and do a film. I guess Woody Allen's doing it in our country the most. He does it every year. Perhaps I would have the guts one day to actually render some version of myself in a movie. Would be interesting and a real challenge to me.
But it takes the guts to do it, and you don't have the guts to do it
yet. I get slammed for everything pretty much, you know, so I'm a little hesitant to, you know, they'd say I'm a real megalomaniac if I did that, but the truth is it is an artistic journey. Fellini is right. He discovered himself making great films like 8½and La Dolce Vita. And Truffaut did too.
Yeah.
Also, Truffaut was a great actor in his own movies.
You want to act?
No, I don't. It's tough. It's a hard thing to do, but it's certainly an honest thing to do.
You know, Sean doesn't want to be an actor.
I know. Yeah, he certainly let me know that. Now,
what does that mean? He certainly let me know that.
Sean is a hayeko. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. In the Indian tribe, there was always somebody who'd go around the circle but walk backwards. He would always be the contrarian. It was his role. It was a spiritual role in the tribe.
What do they call him?
A hayeko. Hayeko.
Yeah. This was a person who played the role of the contrarian to say,
correct. Yeah.
Yes, but perhaps not.
He was always the troublemaker, always the icon that was iconoclast. And that's a spiritual role, because society, it's a crazy person.
Is that who you see yourself as?
Part of me, perhaps. Yeah, perhaps. Perhaps Sean and I are like, you know, we neutralize each other. Two hayekos going backwards at the same time,
bumping into each
other.
Yeah. Is there another book in you?
Yeah, I think so. I would love to. I love writing. I love being... That contemplation, that quiet is very nice, believe it or not. Movies are so noisy, so big, so involving so many hundreds of people. It's nice to be alone with yourself.
You're going to go out and talk to people at Yale and Harvard. You're doing this book tour, and people, university students, are into this. Yeah, they're into your films, and they're into you and what you think, and this sort of, it's almost as Oliver Stone.
No, it's a connection in the eyes, and I love that. Because you look in somebody's eyes, a person who's 19, they're a little lost, and they're looking to you, and they say, you know, what did you do? How did you deal with it?
What can I learn from your experience?
Yeah, and you share, and also you learn in the process. It's they feed back to you, And if you're dishonest with college kids, they pick up on it real fast.
Back to Sean and you, and I mean, the thing that I don't get, and I want you to tell me what the point is, about all the violence. I mean, you want to say, look, in this film, in U-Turn.
Well, this is much less violent than
Of
Natural
course it
Born
is,
Killers.
but there's a lot.
There's violence, but the violence comes from the characters. You know, that's the consequences of their behavior lead to the conclusion. In the same way, comedy comes from their character. As long as it's not gratuitous, these people are playing hardball here, and they're not really serious. They're not really conscious people. The only one who's conscious in the movie, in my opinion, is John Voight character, the Indian. He plays the Indian sort of
who lost something in Vietnam,
man.
didn't he? Lose his sight
He was a blind man, yeah. And he's telling Sean through the movie. He's telling him little snippets of prophecy, and Sean doesn't pick up on it. And that's sort of you see where Sean is. The character Sean plays is a shallow person. And I think a lot of people, when they watch these kind of movies, you do feel superior to the cast. They're like scorpions in a bucket trying to get out, and you feel better than them. They're that schmuck. But really, the truth of the matter is that in our own lives, there is a lot of second-ratedness. We do make bad choices. Yeah. We all die. And we all, so there's desperation.
The book is called a novel. The book is a novel. It's called A Child's Night Dream. The movie U-Turn, starring Sean Penn and Nick Nolte and Jennifer Lopez and others. Thank you, Oliver. Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
As always, good to see you. We'll be right back. Stay with us.